So apparently Prince Harry and Meghan Markle managed to upset the White House again. And this time the reason is almost impressive in its creativity. According to a report circulating online, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex recently took a 2-day humanitarian trip to Jordan where they met with Palestinian and Syrian refugees. On paper, the trip looked like a classic Sussex-style mission compassion cameras and carefully framed moments about uplifting humanity. And to be fair, many people actually praised the visit. Even critics admitted that showing up to highlight refugee issues and healthcare access wasn't exactly controversial. The World Health Organization invited them, and the WHO's Director General publicly thanked them for their generosity and compassion. So far, everything sounds like a pretty normal humanitarian engagement. But of course, when it comes to Harry and Meghan, a peaceful headline apparently isn't dramatic enough. So now we're told that somewhere in Washington, someone was furious. Why? Because while Harry and Meghan were visiting Jordan, the United States was preparing a military strike against Iran, an operation reportedly called Operation Epic Fury. And according to an anonymous insider quoted in the report, the presence of two very famous celebrities doing what the source called a pseudo-royal humanitarian tour in the Middle East at that ecstasy moment was inconvenient. Yes, inconvenient. The claim is that having Harry and Meghan in the region could have created unnecessary noise during a sensitive military operation. Now, let's pause for a second and unpack that. First of all, the timeline. Harry and Meghan's trip ended on the 26th. The strike reportedly happened on the 28th. And Jordan, just as a small geographical detail, sits roughly 1,000 miles away from Iran. So, the idea that two people visiting refugee camps in Jordan somehow complicated a secret military operation happening days later and over 1,000 miles away might require a little imagination. But in the modern media ecosystem, imagination is often the most powerful ingredient. Because once a story gets framed as the White House was furious, suddenly it sounds like an international diplomatic crisis. When in reality, what we have is an anonymous source, a lot of speculation, and a headline that practically writes itself. Sussex's anger White House. It's perfect clickbait. The report even suggests that if something had gone wrong in the region, Harry and Meghan could have been in danger, which would have created even more complication. That part is actually fair in theory. High-profile figures traveling in politically sensitive regions always create additional security considerations. Governments tend to prefer fewer unpredictable variables when they're planning something as serious as military action. But here's the ironic twist. Harry and Meghan weren't conducting diplomacy. They weren't negotiating treaties. They weren't representing the British government. They were attending a humanitarian visit organized by the World Health Organization, something celebrities, activists, and public figures do all the time. Yet somehow the story has already morphed into another chapter of the endless saga where the Sussexes are portrayed as accidental disruptors of global politics. And if you followed media coverage of Harry and Meghan over the past few years, you know this pattern well. No matter what they do, charity work, interviews, podcasts, documentaries, the reaction always seems to fall into the same two camps. Point one group sees a couple trying to build a humanitarian brand outside the royal system. The other sees two celebrities staging carefully managed publicity tours. And every time they appear somewhere in the world, the debate restarts. Are they helping? Are they self-promoting? Are they interfering? Or are they simply existing in the spotlight in a way that guarantees controversy? Because controversy, after all, is the one thing the internet never runs out of. What makes this story particularly amusing is that even the critics who dislike Harry and Meghan admitted that the Jordan trip itself was positive. Refugees received attention. Healthcare access was highlighted. Humanitarian organizations got media coverage. Objectively, those are things most people would consider beneficial. Yet somehow the narrative still finds a way to twist into geopolitical drama. And then you have the internet commentary, which of course adds another layer of sarcasm. Some people looked at the story and simply shrugged, saying that if upsetting certain political figures means drawing attention to humanitarian causes, then maybe that's not the worst outcome in the world. In other words, depending on who you ask, the same headline can be interpreted in completely different ways. To some, it's another example of the Sussexes causing unnecessary spectacle. To others, it's just another exaggerated media narrative built on anonymous quotes and convenient outrage. And that's really the lesson here. In the modern celebrity news cycle, almost any event can be transformed into a controversy. A humanitarian trip becomes a diplomatic problem. A charity visit becomes a geopolitical complication, and two people meeting refugees in Jordan somehow ends up being connected to a military operation thousands of miles away. If nothing else, it proves one thing. When it comes to Harry and Meghan, even a 2-day visit meant to highlight humanitarian work can somehow turn into an international political headline. Because in the world of royal drama and celebrity media, the story is rarely just the story.